Hi, I'm Debi Peverill, and you're listening to the weekly tip from Painless Financial Training Group. Today's tip is possibly more like a rant. I want to talk about the language that the federal government is using to explain their proposals that came out on July 18th. You can read lots about it in the financial press and other press, but I'm not sure it's been clearly explained what it is they're actually trying to do. So first of all, this concept of closing a loophole. If you've ever watched any parliamentary procedure, you see that when they introduce legislation, they congratulate themselves about what they're doing. When the legislation that's currently in place was introduced, there would have been talk about how we're supporting businesses, we know they're the background of our fair country, we're putting procedures in place that will help those business owners, clap, 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 and they're very congratulatory towards themselves. So those are the rules that are currently in place. Now, when they want to change it, because they want to raise more revenue, primarily, I think, to fund public sector pensions, they talk about closing loopholes. These are not loopholes. These are the laws of the land put in place by the government. When you talk about small business owners exploiting loopholes, that's not actually what's going on. They're following the laws of the land, and they shouldn't be criticized for that. Secondly, what about this concept of a level playing field? If you've been paying attention, you will see that they've done some comparisons of an employee with a business owner, and they've indicated that the business owner has tax advantages. Well, that's not the whole thing that makes up a level playing field. An employee has access to vacation pay, required to be at least 2 weeks a year. They get paid for statutory holidays and many other holidays that aren't statutory. They have someone creating the work for them. And if they work in the public sector, they possibly have a defined benefit pension plan. I believe there are many small business owners who would be happy to pay more tax if they could level the playing field and get access to some of those benefits. So when we're talking about leveling a playing field, we should be considering everything, not just the income tax parts of that. Talking about fairness, they're throwing fairness around as though there's something going on that isn't fair. If you know about the marginal tax rates in this country, you'll know that most provinces charge their top income tax earners more than 50% tax. This is the group that the finance minister suggests isn't paying their fair share. If you are sending half of your income to the government for taxes, how is it possible that that's not considered to be fair? Half your income, and yet they're suggesting that they're not paying their fair share. I want to talk about splitting of income. Possibly you know about pension income splitting. This is a rule that says you can take half of your pension income, not OAS, not CPP, but your RSP income and, of course, your government pension, your defined benefit pension you got if you're a public sector worker, and you can take half that and give it to your spouse, and you both pay less tax, and that's legal. That is something that when they put in place, they made great noises about how it recognized some unfairness in the system, where one member of a family might have been home taking care of children, so they didn't have the ability to earn a lot of pension, so we should be able to split that pension between those two family members. This is seen as a good thing. Why isn't it a good thing when a business owner wants to do it? Why is it that pension splitting is good and income splitting is bad, and it's addressing the same issues? We have business owners who have a spouse who is not working outside the home, but they're definitely supporting the business. So, you take a look at this idea about splitting income. It benefits public sector employees primarily if it's pension splitting, and it benefits business owners if it's income splitting. But the concept is the same. How about these rules around not active in the business? The suggestion is that we're not going to be able to pay dividends to family members who are not active in the business. Well, we're going to spend a ton of time trying to define what not active in the business means and keeping records and trying to show that business owners have spouses and children who are active in the business. And I would tell you, if you're a small business owner, you know a small business owner, I know that when I started my business almost 30 years ago, I had to use my house as collateral to get money to start the business. My family was taking that risk with me. If I wasn't able to make a go of this business and we lost the house, my husband would be out the house and so would the children. Why is it reasonable for people to share the risk of employment, but it's not reasonable for them to share the rewards? Middle class. they've been talking about how they have a commitment to the middle class. Well, they're not making any kind of commitment to middle class business owners with these rules. In my accounting practice, I have a lot of clients where their business earns a net income of less than 100 grand. A very common example would be a husband and wife who are earning $60,000 from the business. They take it as dividends. They each pay tax on $30,000. They don't pay a lot of income tax that way. If one person was to pay tax on $60,000, they would pay more tax than two people paying tax on $30,000. If we're not going to be able to pay dividends to someone just because they're a family member, then that family is going to see a significant increase in their tax burden. And you can't tell me that a family that earns $60,000 isn't in the middle class. When they talk about supporting the middle class, they're talking about middle class employees, not middle class business owners. And lastly, I know if you heard the example of Americans have the American dream, which is to found a business and to get rich. And what I hear, the old joke is the Canadian dream is to get a government job. If these provisions go through and it becomes so much more advantageous to be an employee than it is to be a business owner, then that saying is going to come true. And as I've said before, we can't all work for the government. Someone has to create wealth.